Yeah, theory to practice, real world applications of generative AI. This is webinar number 2. It is a shorter agenda than last time, but there's no drop in content. But we're going to cover three areas, more around how you want to approach your AI implementation, how you identify AI project candidates, and then a few examples that hopefully get you thinking, bring some of this to life, and think about how you might want to get value from AI within your organization, but also how you want to address the project, how you go. We're not going to revisit the AI fundamentals content, but plug for episode 1, where we stepped through all the key items and gave you a cheat sheet and covered off the language and those other pieces. But again, that said, this is not a deep dive technical session, nor is it vendor specific. We will use some content from multiple vendors, or 3 actually, but again, not vendor specific. So when we show you an example or a use case, we're not saying that can only be delivered by that vendor. It's just that what we found is a really nice, good, clear way of communicating that example. Again, nor is this sector specific. We are open to requests. So call out in the chat, or drop us an email on the link there at the bottom of the screen if you want to. Let me minimize that. Can I get rid of that? Can you see that? Yeah. Don't worry. So yeah, if you want to drop us an email, anything sector specific, we can look at that for future webinars as well. Okay, so what we're going to talk about first of all is the various models that you might want to try out as far as this is concerned. Can you see that on your screen?
No,
you can't.
No,
all right. Sorry, I was just being distracted by something. A few models that you might want to consider. The first thing we're calling is a productivity sprinkler, and we touched on this in the first webinar. But you know, it would be relatively straightforward for an organisation to go out today, sign up for Microsoft Copilot for Office 365 or Google Gemini, or get a ChatGPT subscription, and then just hand that over to everyone in the company. And see what happens, you know, throw it all out there, put enough water out there and see what pops up. And there are lots of attractions for doing that. First of all, you can tell the board that you're immediately, you know, you're doing AI, you're getting on with that. The second being that it's a really nice way of identifying maybe areas within your organization that you might not have considered as being candidates, you know, that you might identify some really niche areas. And it's also quite an accessible route if you're a non-technical organization. You might not be able to call on a lot of skills. So again, it's an off-the-shelf way of building on tools that you might already have within your company, like Microsoft Office or Google Workspace. It's also quite an inclusive model to deploy. You know, you're putting it out, you're getting everybody in the company involved in it, and you're putting this stuff out, and you're getting quite a lot of buzz internally. And you might even get some wider media interest, depending on, you know, your delivery partner and where we are in the cycle. But for example, here's a use case that's out there from Barnsley Council. And yes, I do look for any excuse to get Barnsley and old movies into my presentation. So this was like too good to miss. But actually, this is the second largest, currently anyway, or at time of press, this is the second largest Copilot deployment in the UK. I think the first one is BP. They're using it in quite a big way. And what's interesting here, I've included the link to the official Microsoft propaganda around this. The headline is interesting. It says how Barnsley Council are transforming local social care with AI, and it is a really nice use case. What's interesting though is they didn't set off to do this. They didn't start off with a project to say let's transform AI. What they did was they've adopted the sprinkler model. They put it all out there. I'm sure they've done a really good deal with Microsoft in terms of how this licensing works, because they're from Barnsley and we're quite careful with our money. And in terms of the model, they put this out around there, and then got to the point where they've had to start to rein that back in terms of where and what and how they've found some opportunities with this one. But again, this is one of the use cases which has popped up and is delivering a lot of value. The other interesting points to note about this, in terms of why this has been really quite successful, is that it's business led. Wendy Popplewell is listed in the description around the project here. She's executive director of core services, so it's not IT led; it's IT supported, and they've gone to quite a lot of trouble to make this successful by deploying. If you are going to go about deploying things in this way, then you need to put a lot of support around the people involved, put good training in place, and be prepared that things are going to fail, and make sure that people are supported appropriately. So yeah, I'm the Barnsley Council taxpayer, and I endorse this message. I think it's quite cool that they're using this. However, right, it might not all be good news. You might have seen a lot of stuff in the media recently, because what we're finding now is that there are some big use cases. This is some reports that are being quoted quite heavily in the media at the moment. So, for instance, the report you see on the left here is from IT News down in Australia. The Australian government have just published this report, which is into a trial of using Microsoft 365 Copilot, and some of the results that have come back. It's an interesting report. It's worth a read if you're looking to use some of these kind of tools. But what you're seeing on the left here is some of the media headlines around this, where they're calling out that that some of the people are using this, or 2/3 of people are using it 2 or 3 times a week, with high expectations largely going unmet. So again, this is a deployment. What's the number? 5,765 licenses. That's quite a lot of people running for 6 months.
$20 to $30.
$30 a month. Yeah. Well, again, I'm assuming the government did probably quite a good deal.
Yeah, there's certainly a special price.
They certainly for at the moment, where people are quite keen on getting use cases in place, I'm sure there's a bit of flexibility with those kind of numbers. But interesting to see this kind of feedback coming.
So what do you attribute these quite diametrically opposing outcomes?
Well, I think if you look at what happened there with the way in which the Barnsley project's being reported, I think they got their expectations set quite well, in terms of, we're going to give this out, but we might be reining it back in if it's not seen as being useful in some places to keep the costs down. And I think what they were very clear of was that what they wanted to try and do was identify some certain use cases, and that this wasn't just going to get thrown over the wall and left.
Yeah.
And I think what's happened here, clearly, I would imagine that they've run this as a trial. Let's put it out there and see what these things. So you've kind of got what you'd expect. You give this to everybody. Not everybody's going to, not everybody's going to get value out of a tool, whatever tool that is that you put out. So I think the some of the headlines we see are not that positive. But again, give them a bit of a. Also, I would say that I worked in Australia for a while in one of the government organisations down there, and the press do like to give them a good old kicking. But so have a look at the actual report itself. I think that's you get some value from that. But again, I think on both sides, a bit of healthy scepticism is a good thing, right? In terms of both how these things are being reported, and then also. So the other thing we've put up here is another report from Google that we're going to share. This is the ROI on Gen AI. Report that came out recently from Google. It's a really nice report. Stephen's going to send some links out, I think, to this, in terms of have a read through this. Again, it's really interesting, but also look at some of the language that's being used, because this is again the reports and the metrics that are used here are generally from organisations who have already committed to using AI and are using this within their organizations. So bear that in mind when you see some of these numbers, because 74% of people are currently seeing an ROI investment. Well, you'd expect that, right? If there are people that are already a bit further down. So just again, a bit of healthy skepticism on both sides.
So I think you're suggesting read beyond the headlines, both on a positive and from a negative perspective.
Absolutely, yeah. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Neil, I do like your analogy of the productivity sprinkler. I mean, it's like if you put a sprinkler out in the garden in the summer, you're putting it out there to water your garden. Yeah, inevitably the dog, the kids will be running through it and making the most of it. Eventually they'll get bored and it'll get back to, so, you know, the people who aren't really, it's not designed for, will clear off. And then it'll be a job. But then when you get to a pipe ban, then the whole thing needs to come off. So, you know, yeah, it's a lovely analogy.
Right, I'm going to move on to number 2 here. Again, the movie references are getting older here. Apologies, it was Pulp Fiction last time, but now we're back in the 80s. Next one might be in black and white. I am also aware there are people on the call who weren't born when this movie came out. I do work with them, but you know, from the famous quote, if you the next model here is that you've got an idea for where AI might be used for something really cool in your organization, and you build it and you test it and you launch it, and you really hope somebody will come and use it. It's a high risk, high reward approach. Yeah, if you build it, they will come. We hope. And the trouble is that they might not. However, of the 3 approaches that we're going to discuss, this one is by far the most fun. All right, it's going to be creative, it's going to be innovative, it's going to be engaging. You'll learn a lot. And you'll also be regarded as thought leaders internally and externally. It'll create a lot of buzz and media interest. And I've called this the tech project equivalent of a free bar, right? So it might not be, you know, it might be hard to justify the cost, but that doesn't make it a bad idea.
You're having a lot of fun.
Yeah, having a lot of fun, and again, that it might be a great way of getting people's interest and creating a bit of
a spark.
Yeah, something going within the organisation.
It's important to create that spark, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Will come forward.
But if you are going to do it, a couple of words of advice, right? So keep the scope tight. There is, for example, a project in the Netherlands where they're using AI to translate from the original Dutch into other languages. What you can see from the headline is the limited number of books. So they're starting with a small number, because there might be a really good reason why nobody's bothered to translate all those Dutch books so far, right? And you might want to test that. So put something out there and test the water. But you know, if you are going to do something a bit different, yeah, I mean, maybe something like this.
Here's a quick demo of what happens when David Attenborough narrates your life. On the left, I'm going to start my camera, which every 5 seconds takes a photo from my webcam. On the right, I'm going to start David Attenborough. And now, as I move around,
Here we have a remarkable specimen of Homo sapiens, distinguished by his silver circular spectacles and a mane of tousled curly lock. He's wearing what appears to be a blue fabric covering, which can only be assumed to be part of his mating display. Look closely at the subtle arch of his eyebrow. It's as if he's in the midst of an intricate ritual of curiosity or skepticism. The backdrop suggests a sheltered habitat, possibly a communal feeding area or watering hole. In its natural environment, we observe the sophisticated Homo sapiens engaging in the critical ritual of hydration. This male individual has selected a small cylindrical container, likely filled with life-sustaining H2O, and is tilting it expertly towards his intake orifice. Such grace, such poise.
Okay, so again, fail fast, right? Get something out that's quick. I think that's really quite clever. But again, he's not spent a lot of time on presentation. He's not invested in anything heavy, but it's a bit of fun. But again, so look, option 3 in terms of how you approach these things is we're calling this friction focus. So look, you're looking for systemic issues and sources of friction in your organization. Right? You're trying to start with the why, understand how AI might help, and then and then define what good looks like. You want to get to the point where you can quantify the value that's going to be delivered, because that's really going to help put a business case together. We've included the engineering flow chart here. Does it move? Should it move? And basically, obviously you can do anything with WD-40 and duct tape, and AI might be in the same kind of solution at the moment. Yeah, we can fix that with AI. Well, let's just be very clear about what it is and what we're actually trying to do. The advantages of this are that you can be really focused around a particular problem. You can keep the cost down. You can really demonstrate value. The engagement that you make will all be relevant. The people that are involved in that process will all generally have something to add. And it's a good way of running a discovery and having some low risk. The disadvantages are, maybe it's not quite as big. You're not going to make such an impact. You make a smaller splash, which personally I don't always think is a bad thing. But again, in terms of our experience of what people are looking for and how to get started, I think this is probably it. But again, mashups are actually of these models are also fine. You might start with a broader, shallow deployment and then move on to something that's a bit more targeted, and that makes a lot of sense. So, in terms of this final approach, friction focus approach, what we try and do there then is you want to look for opportunities within your organization for particular use cases. Don't think jobs, think tasks, think certain activities that are taking place across your organization where we may be able to apply and identify those things. We've come up with this little model, our sort model, which just again lets us look and try and attribute and identify certain tasks. So we've got synthesis, optimize, routine, and triage. And I'm going to go through each of these pieces really, just in terms of what we mean by these and maybe a few use cases. But synthesize is a good place to start. So if you're in the world of in your organization, if you're asked a question or you're presented with a problem, does the resolution of that problem require you to look through large amounts of data from multiple locations in different formats in order to come up with some kind of answer or a plan? So you might remember from the first webinar that we ran, our boiler engineer example. I'm not going to play the whole thing, don't worry. But the boiler engineer example, the engineer is asked for information typically found in one of hundreds of product specification documents. So that in the real world, they'd either have to carry that stuff around or only restrict themselves to certain boilers that they kind of knew in their head. But again, you're broadening out the scope for this.
You're bringing the quality and experience level.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're making everybody as good as your best engineer, which is what you're trying to get to. So this is another example here. Again, this is a company called Syrian, who are probably at the other end of the scale. So these are contract management lawyers, and they'll be working with very large organizations typically. Again, I've put the link in here if you want to go and read the whole use case. It's in the bottom of there, but just the headlines really. But they're using AI to assist the creation of these documents, which are pretty massive, and also ensure that all of the right compliance is included in that, so that the tools really are used to help with the drafting, but then can also review the drafts to ensure that any kind of mandatory content's there and it's up to date. A similar example to this might be in audit. So if you're in an audit team and if the tools can just prove to you that 98% of the last draft of the document hasn't changed, and you can just focus on the last minute changes that have to go in, that can make your life a lot easier if you're working towards a deadline. You don't have to start again every time there's a new iteration of the documentation. You can put those things together. So I've got another example here. Again, I'm going to bit of a trigger warning on this one. Again, first of all, it is shameless propaganda. But it also includes images of lawyers looking happy, which again, I know some people can have a problem with. But let me play this through. And this is from a company, Legal Nation.
We started to experiment with AI solutions with Watson. What we're focusing on first is taking a lawsuit, answering it, and then preparing targeted written discovery. That entire process is about 8 hours of work, and we're now able to deliver that in 2 minutes. And our clients are basically experiencing about a 60 to 80% saving in time on this phase of work alone. Watson delivered way beyond our expectations about what it's able to parse in terms of information. And so it was a really easy sell for our organization, top to bottom, deploying Watson as the AI solution for our platform. There's other AI platforms out there, but what Watson does provide us is an ability for a user interface that's really easy for lawyers to use. When we first saw the results that Watson was producing, my jaw dropped because it was able to make distinctions in legal text that lawyers make. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to liberate lawyers from the mundane tasks so that ironically they can be more human, to work on the type of stuff that they really wanted to do as lawyers, the human interaction, the interviewing, the investigations, polishing of written briefs, the research, the things that make them happy being a lawyer. What we're trying to do is we're trying to take that volume process layer out of the equation by automating that so that we can elevate everyone in the industry. I think what's exciting for me is that we're barely scratching the surface on what we can do with AI and machine learning.
Okay, so apologies to anybody who spat out their tea when we found out that it was all about making lawyers happy. You know, it's not necessarily what makes everybody leap out of it. But some key takeaways from that. Okay, so I think the first one is the headline, right? 8 hours to 2 minutes. So, you know, if you consider areas of your operation where you've got people sifting through mountains of information in order to deliver the relevant information, they're key target areas. But another way to look at it is, are there areas of your organization where you have key individuals who just know stuff, possibly because they've probably spent years working in that and they just know where all the documentation is and they know where things are. You're not looking to devalue that experience, but sharing that ability, again, making everybody like your best engineer is a key area to look for. Final point on this one is that, you know, this guy's job is making lawyers seem more human, which I think, you know, he should be applauded for, and sounds like quite a challenge.
Yeah, it's a good example.
It's a good example. So when we say optimize, we're also looking to get the most out of key resources. So that can be, so this is the next bit, right? So this is the O in our sort model. Okay, so we're optimizing things. So you're trying to get the most from your key resources, and that's either by deflecting unnecessary work away from them or by speeding up the work that they do. So for the latter, here's a nice example from Puma. Hopefully the sound comes across okay on this one again, because this is a really nice example of how you might speed up the creative skilled process.
I'm Andrea Dumovic, Senior Manager, Global E-commerce Photography at Puma, where sports meets creative expression. We are using Google AI to customize the product photos on our website to save time and ensure they are locally relevant for our customers. Google Cloud's Imagine is helping our global content team create dynamic product imagery. And here's how. Let's say a new trail running shoe just launched on our site. I only need to click on the Apply AI background button. Then, based on my prompt, a variety of sample images are generated for me to choose from. Nice. These all capture every detail I included in my prompt, together with a shoe from our photo library. Let's choose this one. We also love to Imagine to help us easily customize content for regional markets. Let's say these shoes are also launching in Japan. I can localize this image by going back and editing the prompt to include a recognizable landmark, Mount Fuji, for example. Ultimately, this makes for a better digital shopping experience for our customers. Puma India, for example, has already seen a 10% increase in our click-through rate. Imagine is cost-effective, creates high quality and localized visuals at scale, so it's been the perfect choice for us.
Better customer experience,
Yeah,
and impact in the bottom line.
exactly. So 10% increase in click-through again, and also the quality of the output's improved. So also, and then finally, you're actually reducing the time it takes to produce that kind of content. So if you're writing a business case for this, you've got a bit of a win from both sides. Yeah, you've got cost avoidance and you've got improved revenue, which, you know, makes it really quite a nice candidate. Yeah,
And also, you don't always get to present all of your product range in its best possible light.
no, No. So again, if you can speed that up, it's a really nice example. But you guys might have others across yours. Another plug for Webinar One. We talked about the use case where we were looking to deploy people at short notice. Anybody who has to fill shifts or manage staff rotas might find that interesting, but you're providing a better service. But what you're doing is you're freeing up the expert in the middle of that service to focus on things that they really need their skills, rather than fending off low-level questions that are draining on their time.
So what's unique about this, Neil? Because once the operative is using the chat window for recording this particular incident, what's different about this in terms of channels of communication?
Well, the difference is that if you go back to the original way that these kind of things were run, it would be somebody would fire out the text message and then have to do all the interpretation of everything coming back, potentially from thousands of people. So what we've got effectively is the natural language capability, meaning that there's more of a conversation going on.
Yeah.
Which means that you can remove that coordinator from the center, that kind of point of that bottleneck.
Yes.
Really,
Yeah.
to go on and get on, and in this use case, to get on with something that's far more urgent.
Yeah.
While at the same time getting better quality information from. Overall, it's a better outcome for everybody involved.
And in terms of the actual police themselves, the device is normal phone and SMS.
Exactly, nothing else to deploy. Again, I'm not going to go through that. That's on Webinar One. If you want to go back and look at Webinar One, that's we give that a bit more information. And again, we happy to have a chat if you want to follow up on this. But it's a really nice use case. I'm going to go on to this one. I'm not actually going to play the video for this one, but this is University Hospitals Coventry and Warwick, and the guy in the picture there is Professor Andy Hardy. He doesn't look as scary as that in the whole video. He looks a lot. I've just caught it at the wrong point there because I needed to get the name in the frame. So apologies to him on that behalf. I've put two links on this one. One is to an IBM video where it's a bit of a fireside chat about how these guys have deployed AI in the organisation, and then there's a use case write-up on there as well. But what was really interesting from this is a really nice use case. It covers off a couple of good examples. The first one is do not attend, which is a huge problem for the NHS. I've done a lot of work in healthcare, and this continues to be a case. So in this trust alone, they get 100,000 no-shows every year, and part of that's where people have got an appointment and they either don't show up or they cancel within very short notice. And if they cancel within 48 hours of the appointment, it's very hard to reschedule that, and that slot is lost. So by automating that text message process and providing several reminders from 14 days out, they get fewer DNAs and they're able to fill the slots where people can't make that. So on its own, that's not really AI. But when you use the assistant in like the last example for that interaction, and it's not just a broadcast, it means that it deflects people from calling up afterwards for trivial details. Another example it talks about is when people do get a referral for a particular procedure, 30% of the calls that are being received by the scheduling teams are just people phoning up to say, have you got my letter? Have you made sure, am I in the list? Am I on there? And they can get ahead of that and deflect all of those by interacting with those individuals and let them know that their referral's been received, that they're on the queue, and that the process is moving on accordingly. So it's almost again being able to work a lot smarter, having key resources do it. They've also got a really nice story about HR and AI addressing routine tasks, and they talk about putting something called People Assist in place. HR is a really quite strong point for AI, and again, have a look inside your organisation, because you look at some of the conversations that they've been able to deflect, and they're about car parking and pensions and annual leave and where to access certain policies and forms and mandatory training. And you can probably say that applies to quite a lot of organisations, and you're just deflecting that. You're optimising things from the point of view of those tasks, but what you've done is identify things that are routine. This is a nice example here from Randstad, again in terms of routine, And again, I guess in this case, you can talk about the recruitment process, but it's also leveraging the ability to support multiple languages and translate things in real time. So let me show you this one. Again, this is from Google. It's a Google example of how they're using some of that tech.
With Gemini and Google Docs, I can use the tools right there to get my work done faster. As a non-native English speaker, AI has really helped me to be able to communicate with clients, candidates, and talents in different languages. So I'm going to write a job ad for production worker. I'm going to take the notes. I'm going to paste them into the AI assistant. And I want this to be output in multiple languages: English, German, French, Italian. Gemini AI has really taken over that task, shortening the time that's needed to actually write job ads. We want to reach the best talent pool and make sure that it speaks to the right candidates. I can speak to my colleagues in one language, and Gemini automatically translates. Zo, wat vinden jullie van deze kandidaat? Harry Smith. Ziet eruit als een interessante kandidaat. Ik ben wel ook benieuwd naar zijn beschikbaarheid. Ik vind het super. Randstad is all about matching individuals to the right opportunities. And we do this, but
okay, I'm gonna hold it there. So you've got the gist of that. It's a really nice example there. Again, supporting multiple languages and doing that kind of translation in real time. It's interesting that he's a non-native English speaker, but his English is slightly better than mine, I think. But his accent is not quite as strong anyway. But in reality, the process is probably going to be a bit more process bound. This approach is probably a bit more typical. So this is something from IBM, using IBM Orchestrate, which is part of their Watson suite. It uses a series of what they call skills to create a job requisition by asking questions and looking for standard descriptions. But what's also interesting in this is that you're hooking into enterprise systems, and the AI tools are acting like an integration glue between various applications. So the use case here is somebody creating a job requisition. They're using the Watson AI assistant here at this point, and just using natural language. I'm creating an existing job requisition for an analyst in this particular location. It's identified that job requisition needs to come from SAP. So now what it's doing is it's finding job requisitions from SAP, and they've got these things called skills, which are almost like processes that are defined, and it's then able to call this. This is what the orchestrate bit does. It's pulling up the information it needs in order to create that. You can then edit that if you need to, hit create, and it's then dropped that into the SAP environment in terms of creating that employment requisition. And now what we're doing is we're going and we're going to post that on LinkedIn. So again, there's another skill that says posted on LinkedIn, and very quickly that's done. Now he's asking to post on Indeed, and that isn't something that they've got. It's not in place at the moment. So it's
another interface.
But what you can do is you can pull things in from other tools. So in this case, you've got RPA. Yeah. And it knows that there are skills within this that we can then pull into the orchestrate piece. So here you go to that other tool, get me that post on Indeed skill, pull it in. And now what it's doing is it's saying, right, sort out the API, tell me what phrases I need. And these are the phrases that when you then type in post on Indeed next time, it will recognize and tie it to that skill and pull it back. So this is a development from your kind of off-the-shelf deployment, but it's still not out and out deep dive development. This is more
process orchestration and automation.
It's almost like using a set of wizards to kind of create these pieces and pull them in.
And when you started, you talked about tasks and actions being another area, and this is an ideal example, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, what it's doing now, for instance, is saying, right, I'm going to do the scheduling of those interviews that we put out, and while I'm doing that, is another thing you could ask. So what can I tell them about parental leave? Yeah. So it's going off to the standard documents, it's pulling these things, this content out, and now this is something you'd be able to share. Yeah. In the meantime, it's scheduled the interviews and it's put those things in place. If you're looking at this in the Microsoft world, this would probably be the equivalent of the Copilot Studio bit, where you'd go and you'd do some additional developments, and there are other tools again. But a lot of this comes down to just that ability to integrate with your third-party tools and services. Yeah. So that might be the e-commerce space or more than else. The last of our T for triage is really
sort model.
In the sort model, yeah, the sort model. So in the T for triage, again, you'll see some similarity here in terms of the synthesis piece, you know, pulling information from lots of places. But imagine you're doing that on the run, and that you're doing that with fast changing data, and you need to make an immediate decision, or in this case, generate something current and contextual. This is a bit of an edge case, but I do quite like it. It's from a company called Pods, who they rent out these moving and storage pods for moving people, around major cities. It's a big brand in the US, but what they've got is quite an innovative use case. Let me just show you this.
Since 1998, the Pods container has been more than just a moving and storage container. It's been a roving billboard for our brand.
Using Google Cloud AI, we made the world's smartest billboard, an activation that could adapt to each neighborhood in New York City, changing in real time based on data. First, we trained our Gemini model, Vertex AI. We uploaded project plans, brand guidelines, videos, even transcripts of talks with Pods leaders. Then we asked Gemini to write unique headlines for each neighborhood. And using Google Cloud, we brought in real-time information like time, weather, subway delays, and traffic conditions.
The result, a dynamic billboard that actually feels like it's part of the city. The truck hit all 299 neighborhoods in just 29 hours, creating more than 6,000 headlines, a feat that would have been humanly impossible without AI. And it worked. In just a week, we saw a 60% increase in website visits and 33% more quote requests, our biggest year-over-year growth ever. With Google Cloud and Gemini, Pods discovered the new way to create hyperlocal marketing.
Very remarkable.
Yeah, but yeah, hyper-local marketing. I mean, effectively, what they're doing is they're pulling in lots of dynamic content in order to facilitate that kind of billboard. It is very edgy, and probably again for that kind of marketing case. This one's a little bit more mainstream, and probably a bit more familiar. This is from Priceline, who promote themselves in the US as travel deal makers. And it's interesting, really. Again, this is not a brand I think that we're that familiar with in the UK, but they also own Booking.com and Kayak and lots of other brands that we are, a lot more familiar with. I was doing a bit of digging in terms of once I'd seen this, I thought it was quite a nice use case there, and a bit of Star Trek trivia. They back in the day, apparently, the William Shatner, who was the original Captain Kirk for the millennials on the call, he did the voiceovers for some of the original adverts back in the 90s, the late 90s, when they were a startup. He didn't get paid for it, and he got stock instead. Okay. And the rumor is, and it might be a bit of an urban legend, he sold out before the end of the original .com bubble and made $600 million.
Okay.
Which, that's
worth not being paid up.
It's absolutely, yeah. It's a good shout for old Captain Kirk. Yep. So this is something from Priceline. Again, travel is pretty fast moving, right? You've got it's time critical information, weather, tight schedules, flight schedules, price, strikes, all kinds of things can have an impact. And apparently it takes about 16 hours to plan a trip. So
AI, with the emergence of Gen AI, we now also have our content enrichment and a real-time recommendation engine using the Gen AI services that Google offers. Now, competitive industry like travel, speed to market is very key. So we were very fast to make sure that we had our
initial prototype of our Gen AI solution built in, we leaned on Google Cloud to bring in the modernized data platform and the AI infrastructure. And it was easy for us to power this prototype because we had our data platform already sitting in BigQuery. It was easy to integrate that with Vertex AI to deploy and manage models. All of our product releases and product roadmap integrates Gen AI in its vision, from how we engage with the customers to help them search, to book. We integrate unstructured data into our GCS layer, and with Big Lake, we are able to query them seamlessly and join them with image or videos and audio data sets, and provide an integrated analytics layer, which will provide us insights into how we want to personalize the recommendations for our customers and give them a more thrilling experience on recommendations. Since our entire data suite was in BigQuery, the seamless integration that Google provides with Vertex AI was one of the key reasons. And also the ease or the development and deployment and management of the AI components in the models that Vertex AI provides. So it's been a pretty fabulous journey. Priceline is creating a new way to minimize planning and maximize your trip.
So I think that the key takeaway there is first of all, can you use AI there to complement an existing offering, right? Is it something you're already doing that you can implement that, and certainly in that kind of triage piece, is it something that's going to actually allow you to bring in more information at the point that you're making that kind of decision? Yeah. That's adding additional value to the customer experience. And again, in your organization, there may be other examples where you're trying to do something similar. You've got a point in time that people are using to make a decision. Can you make their lives easier by adding some of these AI tools? Again, back in the previous example, one example we talked about was the e-commerce piece, where can we take the crazy out of paving? I think we put it in there about, can you give people additional information about the job they're doing in an e-commerce setting? So that's really what we were trying to do. Can AI add any additional capability to something that to a process that you can't avoid that's already taking place?
So in that example, we were trying to effectively take the best branch staff and put that experience online. That was the proof of concept we were trying to get across, wasn't it?
That was the use case that we were.
So it's available 24/7.
That was it. So that's the SORT model. Again, it's a nice frame. It's a guideline, not a map. There's a bit of overlap between some of those areas, but it's a nice way of starting to, as a way to try and break out and identify a few examples from your organisation that hopefully we've helped to bring to life. That's it in terms of the content from those pieces. I guess in terms of, are we happy to take questions now?
I think just quick recap for people.
Yeah.
If you didn't join what we're referring to as webinar 1, from basics to business impact, we provided a guide of how to get started, and also a cheat sheet, which is a blog post on the website as well. So we can provide that as a PDF if people would like to receive that. I'm sure Steve will send a link to that out in the follow-up to the event. We will be running an event, what we're referring to as webinar 3. So we're going to take things up a gear for webinar 3. We're still working on the content for that. But in the meantime, if any of your colleagues would like to join webinar 1, which was from basics to business impact, or to join webinar 2, from theory to practice, which is obviously what Neil's just taken us through today, we will be running those again during January. Stephen will provide dates for those, but we would encourage you to get your colleagues involved and sign up for those. For anybody who's at a point of thinking, I want to get started with AI from a business perspective, then we are offering half-day free exec workshop readiness events, and we'll bring the team to you, or we can do that remotely online. So that's an offer from DeeperThanBlue. that we will help you discover what those use cases and problem statements are and which are the best candidates to start your AI journey with. And then lastly, for anybody who's super advanced and got a particular use case they want to build out, we have our Deeper AI Lab, where we will look at a dev, test and learn exercise with an organization in terms of building that use case out. But that's for people who are more advanced, I would say, in their journey.
Yeah, you've got something specific in mind, and we're ready to go and looking at more at the point of execution rather than anything else.
So there's some next steps.
Okay.
So to answer your point, Neil, I think we can open it up now.
Yeah.
We can take some questions. Steve, can we open it up to voice, or should we take the questions through chat?
So I've suggested raise a hand. I can certainly unmute everybody. I'll just go for that. So if anybody has got a question, raise your hand and open your mic. We have got a couple of, while you're thinking about it, we could probably just do the final Mentimeter couple of questions, if that's okay.
Okay.
So if I'm sharing my screen, can you see that? Just nod, Neil, I can see you.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm just catching up on the chat actually, because I couldn't see this during the things.
Okay.
I like the William technical
I'll just put the Mentimeter instructions up again. We've got the QR code, so scan it or use menti.com to enter the code. I'll put those back up again. So last couple of questions. These are text-based, so you'll have to get your fast thumbs working on here. So what are you most excited about AI? I'll let you have a bit of time to chuck some words down. Create potential. Efficiency. Oh, Lucy's got a question. Ooh. Lucy, unmute yourself. And
Yeah. Thanks for that, guys. It's really interesting, and I was here for the last webinar as well. I suppose it's less of a question per se and more of a comment, and the thing that continually is in the back of my mind for this. The use cases and things you presented are really appealing. They're really exciting from business wins and from that side of thing, and the potential with all of this is absolutely massive. I suppose I come at it from the human perspective, and I feel like with a lot of this, there's like baked in assumptions about this will improve the customer experience. And I do worry a little bit. Worry is probably a bit of a strong word, but worrying about what happens to human interaction and also the rights of customers and end users to know when they're interacting with AI tools over the human reactions, or in the case of like you had with the lawyers, whether this actually opens up space for improved relationships with people because you remove all the mundane, the routine, etc. So that's a long verbose observation, statement, query rather than the question. Sorry.
I think they're all good. Well, I think they're all good points. I think I think the knowing whether you're interacting with an AI agent, I think, is very important. Ideally, what you want to get to is a situation where the quality of that interaction is such that you really don't care. You know, but you don't care. And I've had a few of these with various organizations where you do go online and you're having that chat experience and you know it's a bot, you know, but it really doesn't matter because what I'm doing is I'm getting the information I came for really quickly. And then that's a win-win. You want to avoid that slightly creepy feeling where something is pretending to be human and giving you that level of interaction, but you really know it's not. So I think as long as it's clear and everybody, you know, is aware of that, I think that you really want to shoot for that anyway, because you're not going to kid anyone. And if people find out afterwards it was all fake, then that's you're going to undervalue your brand. So, you know, manage that very carefully. In terms of the quality aspect, I think you can push that up. The audit example has come from a friend of mine who works for one of the big four practice, where they talk about, right at the end of the process, the customer's going to constantly changing things, and you might be working on a bid in your organisation, or something is going to change at the last minute, and the time, the amount of work in putting out a new value is refresh is continually moving on. But if you can actually improve the quality of the outcome there, then again that is a bit of a win-win. It does make me wonder whether or not the 8 hours to 2 minutes time saving is going to get passed on to the client, right? That's the thing that immediately the alarm bells start ringing. But I'm sure they're honest and upright people, and that always happens. So but yeah, and then some of the points around the ethics of that, again, I think are very important, because not only is it so a bit disingenuous to pass off an AI solution as being really a human. People need to understand the level of trust that's involved in that, and what it is that's actually making the decision, and what that's actually based on. And I think that's only fair. Certainly, some of the public sector pieces around, is this factual information that there's yes, it's a binary answer, this is the rule, or is this an opinion I'm giving you? And in which case, that has to be based on, you need to be very clear about where that answer's come from.
I think the other aspect of this as well is there are measures, certainly from a customer experience perspective, and NPS scores. So I think customers are very quick to let you know when things aren't great as an experience. They're not so good at letting you know when things are a good experience.
Yeah.
They tend to not say too much at that point, but they're good at declaring when it's not great.
I think you need to give the option to jump out to a human if you're doing an interaction.
Yeah.
Right? I want to get out. But there have been quite a lot of, but when you get on there and you're number 483 in the queue and your call is important to us, please hold. At that point, I'll take the AI bot. Thanks very much. So.
I think a good example is NatWest, and I haven't got the NPS score uplift to hand, but back in 2019, they were handling something like 5 million interactions with customers a year. They've recently gone through a relaunch with generative AI in 2024. But the stats from 2023, so as they evolved this offering in terms of customer service, that was recording 10.8 million interactions. So it was absolutely increasing, even prior to Gen AI being present.
Excellent.
We give you, there's a very full answer there. Sorry.
You pushed us over the top now, Neil.
Sorry.
Any more questions?
Anything else?
I just while you were covering that, I did the last couple of Menti slides, so we've got some interesting input there. So yeah, if there's nothing else, I can't see any more other hands raised. I think that's a good time to wrap up. Thanks to everybody for joining. Another interesting session, Neil. Thank you.
Thanks for joining, everybody.
Thanks for your input, Chris. We will be putting this one on again in the new year. We'll be doing number 1 again in the new year, and we'll be developing number 3 for the new year. So
it's all going on. If only there was a handy tool we could use.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Yeah. Have a good Christmas for everyone who celebrates. Have a good break. And we'll see you on the other side.
Merry Christmas to you all. Bye-bye.